welcome back to the Down to the Wire podcast. We are back again. Today, or in this episode, we're going to be doing a review of the Monaco Grand Prix and kind of looking forward to Baku, as it is indeed race week. Jack, how you doing?
I'm good. Not to be honest, the sport's dialing down. The football's finished. My prediction of Chelsea way back in January to win it was correct. So clearly, I know my thing or two. just saying. But yeah. I am looking forward to this weekend. I'll be honest. I like Baku as a circuit. I do. So yeah, I am looking forward to this.
Fair enough. Yeah, I mean, it's worth saying as well. If you may be a regular listener to this podcast, maybe not, but if you're here for the first time, you're interested in football, we are going to be talking about the Euros in the coming weeks.
That is true.
I'm right in saying that, Jack, aren't I? True.
Next week is a Euro podcast. And
we're probably going to do a couple in relation to the Euros. What format did you suggest again?
We're going to do a pre-tournament conversation. We're going to have one after the group stage, one before the final, possibly even one before the semi-finals, but we'll see how we go with that.
Yeah, see how we go on. So, there's going to be stuff... there's going to be stuff popping up. Obviously, we've got the Formula 1 to carry on with as well. And the Lions Rugby, we might do an episode or two on that. Because this is the hub of all sports on this channel.
I mean, let's get the Olympics in as well, There's so much going on.
Really?
Yeah.
I know nothing about this.
Neither do I, and that's the beautiful thing about it. It's an amateur sport. That's what it is. It's amateurs. No, it's amateurs competing. You can't have professionals. Yeah. That's the truth, that.
Well, you've just offended the whole athletic
community. It's a genuine thing. You can't. That's why you don't get Anthony Joshua's and all them in there.
You don't call them amateurs.
I think amateur is only a sort of a slur for sporting athletes because of FIFA, where you play on amateur mode, which is easy. But in actuality, amateurs are still incredibly at the top of their fields. They're just non-professionals. It's the only difference, but...
Yeah. That's true.
Anyway, we digress.
Anyway, we shall crack on with this podcast, talk about Monaco. Right, so, yeah, we had the Monaco Grand Prix. It was not this weekend just gone, it was the weekend before now, wasn't it? We didn't do a Formula 1 one last week. Why was that? What did we do last week? Did we do anything last week? I can't remember. There was
barely anything to talk about after Spain. It was not the most entertaining race. True. And we did also have the football, a lot of the football bonanza to go on. So.
Oh yes, that's true.
That is such as life. Picking and choosing.
That is true. Yeah, so Monaco Grand Prix. I mean, just straight off the bat, fairly. Let me think of a kind word for this. Uninteresting.
Yeah, I don't think anybody going into that race thought we're going to see loads of overtakes. It was sort of predestined that we were going to have quite a dull race.
I mean, I think the thing is, because we didn't have Monaco last season, I mean, perhaps I'm speaking for myself alone, but I was quite excited for Monaco because, it's, it's one of the I can't think of the word now. It's like one of the staple Formula 1 circuits, really. It's always been there kind of thing. But yeah, even by Monaco standards, it was uneventful.
I think especially when you've seen some of the races we've had so far this year, we've had some.
Yeah.
I mean, by and large, if you were to take a full body of work from previous seasons, you go, some of the races we've had so far could be the cherry-picked good ones from a different season. We've had really good races so far. So to sort of...
we've had 3 or 4
after such interesting ties, particularly at the front of the field, to have this one now where, I mean, we'll talk about it later, but Mercedes were a non-factor in the race. And...
yeah.
Red Bull, as much as Sainz kept it respectable, I think it was less than 10 seconds, the win. But by and large, it was a Red Bull win, and there was no doubt that it was going to be... I mean, maybe there would have been doubt had Leclerc not had his incident, but we can probably go on to that later on in terms of who was lucky and who was unlucky.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's just kind of dive into it in a bit more detail then. So I guess, as you said... Leclerc didn't start because of some issues, which I think we'll talk about later. But Verstappen won. Fairly comfortable, really, as in it was one of those ones where you were looking at it and going, well, unless he makes a mistake or his tyres drop off like a cliff, it was looking fairly comprehensive fairly early on, wasn't it? As in it was at no point was Verstappen really under pressure, I don't think, from what I can remember.
No, he did well off the start. He quickly boxed off Bottas, who started third. Just sort of pretty much cut him up. Just went, you're not getting anything. You're not getting an ounce of that first turn. So he just got ahead of him. Knew that Sainz wasn't going to be able to overtake him because he just hasn't got the car for it. And from there on out, such as Monaco, you knew there wasn't going to be very many overtakes unless something particularly bad happened in the pits. It did look like if you were at the front, you were the winner.
Yeah, definitely.
But he does deserve it, nevertheless. You know what I mean? He looked good throughout the weekend. Classically, Red Bull have been a team which has done well at Monaco. It's something to do with the car. I think this year, more than any other, has exemplified that the power unit is a non-factor for Monaco because Ferrari... I'm not saying they've got the worst power unit, but I think one of the big differentiators between Ferrari and then Mercedes, Red Bull, McLaren was the fact that they haven't got as good an engine as them. But you saw Ferrari were the best team this weekend, in my opinion. They were so unfortunate with the Leclerc crash in qualifying, and that was a blight on their weekend in a sense. But you looked at what team. I mean, had Monaco been the first race of the season, everyone would be saying, "My goodness, Ferrari are back." But I think this is just a case of there isn't a long enough straight for anyone with a superior power unit to get an advantage on. So it was just going to be a non-starter in terms of that element of the race. But as it goes, power unit wasn't a big feature this weekend.
As in, like, I think Ferrari were. Basically, I think what we're saying is that this race flattered Ferrari a little bit, just because, like you said, the differentiator of the power unit was basically zero, as in it made no difference at all, really, because it's Monaco's such a
whilst I do agree, yes, it did
straight circuit, windy circuit.
Whilst I do agree that it did flatter them a touch, at the same time, it did sort of bring into the conversation that it's not all about power unit, and Ferrari clearly. Possibly the best of everybody when it comes to package in terms of aerodynamics and all that elements of it, because you can't do well at Monaco if you haven't got that, and clearly they do it better than Mercedes at the moment. So there's at least something for Ferrari to work off of, saying there's promise for the future because we are the best at something. Don't know what that was. Don't know what it was this weekend.
Well, I mean, I think there are. I mean, perhaps we're jumping the gun a little bit here. We'll talk about this. We'll talk about Ferrari in a little bit later because let me see in the notes. We talk about Leclerc, so we'll go on to that a little bit later. But I think it was important for Red Bull to kind of get a win this race. I was looking at something, and it was the number of laps led so far this championship, and obviously it was taken into account Monaco as well. But as in Red Bull have by far led the most laps. But out of the first 4 races, Hamilton has won 3.
Verstappen's got 2.
I think that's right. And Verstappen's, well, now he's got 2, but before this race he had 1. So it was. I think Red Bull needed to make the not dominance, but as in they needed to make their slight advantage count. I think.
Yeah, and to be
and it's interesting. Sorry,
to be fair to them, I don't think they've underperformed in a sense. I just think Mercedes were operating at such an elite level for those first few races where, I mean, some circuits didn't suit Red Bull. With the wind in Imola, Portimao, that was an issue for them. Then, you had these little bits and bobs which weren't quite going their way, but they hashed the strategy on the first race in Bahrain. So some of them are self-inflicted, some of them were just small things, and I think this weekend showed that maybe a bit more extremely because Mercedes were not, it's a team which isn't very good in Monaco, but it did show off how good Red Bull are.
Yeah, and I mean the thing is, you say how little things hadn't gone Red Bull's way. It was like the opposite for Mercedes, where little things had gone their way. Like first race, Perez has to start from the pit lane. So immediately, tactically, you've got the standard two Mercedes versus Red Bull. The two Mercedes versus one Red Bull. I was thinking of something else then that I had in my head.
Guess.
Yeah, basically, Imola, where Hamilton, he was a lap down, and then because of
that was very fortunate.
The race, because of the red flag or whatever, Hamilton then is on the same lap, and then he can just absolutely romp to second place. So they've had a few little bits of luck. So it's probably about time that Red Bull, over the course of the season, these sort of things seem to balance themselves out. And like Mercedes have always, have particularly always struggled at Monaco. But having said that, this was a particularly poor performance by them, in all honesty. I'm just looking at these notes here. I wonder whether you want to expand on some of the bits you've put in there, about mind games and stuff.
Hamilton had sort of been putting the pressure on Verstappen pre-race, or probably in the week leading up to Monaco, by suggesting that Hamilton that is, had done well to avoid colliding with Verstappen, sort of insinuating that it's all Verstappen which is causing these relatively close encounters. I mean, we've seen quite a few first turns where Verstappen's, perhaps has pushed the limit a touch in terms of how close he's getting to Hamilton through the turns. But you could say on the flip side that, Hamilton's doing the same, just not when he's next to Verstappen, in terms of, we've suggested he pushed track limits a little bit. So I get the putting pressure. I can see Hamilton's point in terms of he's probably had to pull out of challenges more. But I guess if you want to win races and you're in these sort of title fights, sometimes you've got to, maybe be the more aggressive driver and almost cut somebody up.
Yeah, I don't think that's a jibe from Hamilton, though. I think that's just stating facts. As in, like, when you look at some of the times where they have been next to, like, I think the perfect example is at Imola, where they go into the first corner, Hamilton kind of hangs it on the outside, and Verstappen, well within his rights, just goes no and just closes the door. But that doesn't mean, as in, Hamilton has done well to avoid a proper collision.
But at the same time, it's Hamilton's job to avoid the collision in that scenario, because it's he's
not necessarily his job, but I think Verstappen is well within his rights to go, no, I'm slamming the door there. So I don't think that's a criticism. I think that's just stated facts, to be honest with you.
He did go on to say that he thinks Verstappen perhaps has something or a lot to prove, which is why he's sort of flinging his car around the way he is. Perhaps suggesting that Verstappen's underperforming, almost getting that out there early, just to sort of see how it plays with his mind.
Well, I mean, I guess there's a few things. I mean, like, look, what's the main criticism we always have of Valtteri Bottas? And that's when he's in those positions, he never gets his elbows out. Equally, this is the first time where, realistically, Verstappen has had a car that can actually compete. So in the past, you would probably think, well, it's not worth getting my elbows out because I could cause a collision and get nothing, when realistically Mercedes are much faster and they're just going to overtake me anyway. Now he's like, actually, no, I'm gonna get my elbows out. I'm closing that door there. You're not coming past. So, yeah, I don't think it's a criticism of Verstappen. I think it's more just an observation by Hamilton, because, like we said, this is the first time that Verstappen has really been in a position where he feels probably that it's worth kind of hanging the car in certain places and, making it difficult for Hamilton to get past. But, we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, Verstappen did win the race, and after the race said, actions always speak louder than words. That is a good lesson after this weekend. You have to talk on the track. That's what I like. As a team, so far, we have made the smallest mistakes. That is why we're ahead. I hope we can keep going for the rest of the season. I like that response in terms of talking on the track. Because to be fair, Verstappen didn't really say much in response to any of Hamilton's comments off the track. So it is quite okay, we're doing our talking on the track. And then he almost does put a jibe into the Mercedes team by saying that so far they've made the smallest mistakes. Because I don't think Red Bull are oblivious to the fact that they've perhaps hashed one or two strategy decisions here or there, or not, or in a sense sometimes being outsmarted by Mercedes with the situation in Spain where Mercedes jumped
Yeah.
onto or had a spare set of medium tyres lying around to use. So I do like that almost, yeah, we're doing our talking on the track and we're better at it because we've made the least mistakes. So it's like, oh, nice. Fighting talk, here we go. But then, yeah, Hamilton then says he's not playing mind games. They did a great job. 17 races to go. I'm not going to get into a war of worlds. It's childish, but I don't know. I don't think Verstappen's being childish. I think he's just sort of saying, yeah, we are the better team. You know what I mean? It's fighting talk. I wouldn't call it childish.
To be honest with you, I wouldn't be surprised if he was saying it's childish to the media. To be honest, like perhaps if they're trying to create a bit of beef. I mean, look, it is a bit cheeky from Verstappen to say so far we've made the smallest mistakes. When you think about it realistically, the only mistake is in Hamilton at Monaco was out of contention anyway. As in, and we say this later in the notes, as in Hamilton, Mercedes didn't help him in Monaco, but that certainly wasn't the cause of him not getting points. I think the only mistake they've really made is the Bottas thing, which we'll come on to later, as in apart from that, Mercedes have been pretty much on the money, I think, up until now. So, and again, I feel like over the course of a season, these sort of things balance out. As in, like, let's not forget, last season, Verstappen, I think I'm right in saying he didn't finish like any of the Italian races.
But yeah, that might sound right, yeah. To be fair, a few of them were engine issues.
Yeah, but I guess what I mean is in like, okay, Mercedes have had a stinker. There's no denying that. But at some point this season, Red Bull will have a stinker. So, these sort of things balance themselves out. So we'll see what happens. And, Verstappen can say, we've made the smallest mistakes. You could argue that perhaps Red Bull have not necessarily made mistakes, but as in they've probably been... Mercedes tactically, I think, so far this season have been better. Like when you look at Bahrain, as in Mercedes by far had a slower car. When you look at Spain, where they pitted Hamilton, and you were like, oh, flipping heck, that's risky, and it worked wonders towards the end of the race. So I think it's probably about level pegging. But yeah, Hamilton's been there long enough now, and like Hamilton's character has changed a lot. As in, like when he was at McLaren and stuff, he would have probably, like you always say, oh, I was hoping for a nibble there. Like Hamilton would be chomping like at the media, like, oh yeah, going in for a war of words. But nowadays, I think he's just not interested. So
he did. To be fair, he did have a bit of a chew out of the Mercedes team during the race. I was quite enjoying listening to that.
Oh yeah, but I think he was well within his rights too, because I think he understands. Like, let's be fair. I know Hamilton didn't have a great weekend, but when you think back to Bahrain, like, okay, tactically it was impressive, but Hamilton made those tyres last for so long and then still managed to keep Verstappen behind him. Like, Mercedes probably owe him one in terms of digging him out a little bit, and Mercedes just botched it, really. Like I said, we'll get on to it later, but as in, Hamilton didn't have a vintage weekend, but equally Mercedes didn't do him any favours either.
Fair.
Should we move on to Bottas then? Mr. Unfortunate.
Yeah, I mean, talk about rough luck for a guy. I know we've slated him in the past, or I have in particular.
He has no luck. No luck.
None at all. I mean, even when he's doing half okay, he's still nothing. He's always... It's pretty much guaranteed. If Bottas is in the front three, he's going to have something wrong happen to him in the pit stop. It's never him. It's always the pit stop in those scenarios.
Well, this is the thing, isn't it? Like, when you look at the weekend, like, considering, like, Hamilton really struggled, as in, like, he just couldn't get the tyres to work. Bottas was flying. Yeah. Like, Bottas was doing really well. Well, hence why he qualified...
He qualified... No, he qualified third, but Leclerc not starting promoted him to second. Yeah,
promoted him to second, yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, his pit stop lasted 43 hours for those who...
Which, believe it or not, is a record.
Yeah, it is. It's the longest pit stop. But, yeah... The sort of pit crew, there's 20 of them for a pit stop, not including if they're making any other adjustments, just for a regular wheel change. 3 for each wheel, and 1 takes the wheel off, 1 puts the wheel on, and 1 uses the wheel gun. And Bottas pulled up a little bit shy of his marker, and it meant, well, the guy who was going to be putting the next wheel on didn't give the gun mechanic much room, so he couldn't adjust properly, and it meant that he rather than going at it, 45-degree angle, just lock it on, do it, get it off. Instead, he was sort of doing it at almost a 60-degree angle, which meant it wasn't on properly, and it just machined off the bolts. So basically, it was just a smooth surface from there on out, and it was like, yeah, you can't get that off anymore. That thing is obliterated. I mean, anybody who watched the coverage would have seen the metal shooting up into the sky as he was doing it. Yeah. I think the guy instantly was like, oh no, that's that. Yeah. Bottas was incredibly unlucky. I mean, I guess you could even say it was the pressure of the situation. It's Monaco, you're second. This is a good opportunity.
Yeah.
To be fair, Bottas did pull up shy, and Toto Wolff said that afterwards. He said, as much as this was the pits team's error in terms of what happened with the bolts, at the same time, if Bottas hits his marker instead, I mean, you're not doing them any favours by being a little bit shy. It meant everything was off from the beginning, but particularly in Monaco, where pit stops are basically everything. I mean, we saw that with Hamilton and the fact that he ended up losing something like three places by the end because of it. But
I mean, I do feel like Toto Wolff is trying to spread the blame a little bit there rather than just pinning it solely on mechanics. He's kind of dragged Bottas into it as well. I mean, you're not telling me that's the first time that any driver has kind of dropped slightly short of the marker.
But
and realistically, what's more difficult? To make sure that you bang on the money in terms of the marker, or for your pit crew to move slightly to the left.
But the thing is, that's the thing. Okay. We're in Monaco. When you're in Monaco, you've got to do those pit stops as quick as possible. You know that you haven't got time to readjust, because if you do, that could be Sainz overtaking you, and that looks even worse almost in that scenario. I mean, I don't think they'd have imagined that they were going to be shaving off the bolts because of it, but I can see what the pit crew guys... I mean, I bet as soon as they went out, they were like, you need under 3 seconds, lads. Nothing but under 3 seconds.
Yeah.
And maybe the situation overcame, and they went, just go with it, see what happens, and shaves it off. But mightily unluckily for him. I
mean, I guess what I'm saying is, you're not telling me that Bottas is the first Formula 1 driver in history to fall slightly short of his mark. Yeah, in this scenario, they managed to absolutely shred the bolt on his wheel to the point where it can't come off. I think there's a little bit of sort of management going on with Toto Wolff there, as in, like, realistically, that's the mechanic's fault. I think it's as simple as that. As in, like, you can't...
It is, but you're an entire team. I mean, I don't know how shy of it he was, but, if he's a distance off, that doesn't help them at all.
No, it doesn't. But as in, that doesn't then mean you can go, oh, well, he's short, I'll just go to the wrong angle anyway. You have to adjust, like... It happened. Like, you think of, like, last season when Stroll missed his pit stop and he took out the guy in his pit crew. That sort of stuff happens in Formula 1, as in they're not going to be on the money every single time. So I feel like it's a bit of management from Toto Wolff there. And as in, like, you're not telling me that the mechanics aren't trained for that sort of scenario. Like...
No, I'm sure they are, but this is Monaco, and that was kind of the point I was trying to make, was in Monaco, it is all about the pit stop. You can't be slow.
It is. But then, if what they could have done, realistically, is if the mechanic just lines up slightly different, after the race, if there's a load of flack, then Toto Wolff can just go, oh, well, Bottas missed his mark, we have to readjust.
Yeah.
Simple as that. So, I don't think... Let me put it this way. If the pit stop had been slightly slower, I think... they could have quite easily managed that. I think by them saying, oh, Bottas slightly missed his mark and blah, 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 blah. As in, like, I don't think Bottas missing his mark is a huge thing. As in, you're not... I would be quite interested to see, like, what happens in pit stops in terms of hitting the mark. Because I think you'd probably find that a lot of them kind of either drop slightly short or overshoot, just because, it's quite a tight area. You can't really see the front of the car. You're coming in hot, it must happen all the time.
Yeah, possibly.
Except Bottas was the unfortunate so-and-so who ended up having to wait 43 hours for his tyres.
That's got to be frustrating, though. I mean,
Oh, it must be so frustrating.
to be fair, he was having a good race. It wasn't sensational in terms of he wasn't catching Verstappen or anything.
No,
but
he was
it's
he
points.
was in the mix
Yeah,
though.
it's two. It's second place points. That's all you can really ask for.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Definitely.
unfortunate for him.
Very.
Moving on to the other Mercedes driver, we did mention Hamilton before. What did you make? I mean, I know you were saying that Mercedes botched the strategy, which is the reason he fell further back. But do you not think he should have done? Well, do you not think he would have been quicker though? I mean, in theory, you go off old softs onto fresh hards. You should be quicker, shouldn't you?
I don't think the reason he fell further back was because of the pit stop, but I don't think Mercedes did him any favours realistically. When, like I said, as in basically Hamilton not dug Mercedes out, but as in he did them a favour at Bahrain by putting in an absolutely outstanding drive. And there are going to be times when your driver doesn't perform as they would like, and you've kind of got to give them a bit of a hand.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Mercedes,
what more could they have done though? Because in theory, what they did was the undercut, which is the smart thing to do.
Well, yes, but as in clearly Hamilton seemed to think that, he's obviously been in conversation, because when he came back on the radio, it was something along the lines of, you've pitted me, and I've come out behind him again. So I feel like, to be honest with you, I feel like an undercut at Monaco isn't necessarily always going to work. Just because of overtaking and all that sort of stuff. I feel like it was, when you're in that position, as in you're not leading the race, I feel like they probably could have perhaps listened to what Hamilton was saying rather than just going with strategy. It just wasn't vintage, really. I mean, and like I said, I'm not saying the reason Hamilton didn't get good points was because of that decision, because I don't think he would have got particularly good points anyway. But I think any sort of chance of him getting, like, say, fifth, like, immediately went out of the window as they kind of did that move.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's my thoughts, anyway.
I guess you also want an overcut. I mean, in theory, if Mercedes were the quicker car, in theory, doing an overcut, in a sense, by pitting later would allow them to have a bit of free air to get that time advantage.
Exactly.
But, I mean, on balance, he was slower in qualifying, so there was nothing really to suggest that the Mercedes was going quicker than Gasly.
That's
we
true.
don't know if. I mean, to be fair, I think Gasly was almost a second ahead at one stage of him before the pit stop. That is so.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's one of the unknowns with Monaco, isn't it? Because Hamilton wasn't necessarily right behind Gasly, you don't really know. But equally, at Monaco, you can't just follow right behind, otherwise that's going to be a crash. So, I mean, I guess you could argue perhaps Mercedes should have listened to their driver a little bit, because ultimately, the driver is the one who knows whether they can go quicker or not, right? So, if Hamilton sat in the car going, if you give me free air, I can cut time out, then, perhaps they should have listened to him rather than... I mean, I guess what I'm saying is, I feel like what Mercedes did was kind of like no risk. Whereas...
No, I wouldn't say it was
Monaco,
no risk. No risk would have been to pit the same lap. Be purely just trying that.
It was conservative then. It was conservative.
I'll be honest, in all other scenarios, I think if I were a team, strategy guy, and you were looking at how you're going to get somebody in Monaco, you'd think, I'll go for the undercut. I can understand maybe if you've got the quicker car, perhaps you do the overcut, but then you've got to really be confident that you're going to get that advantage, you know what I mean, as the quicker car. So it's a tough one to do there. I'd be honest, I don't blame Mercedes in that scenario. I don't think they did anything particularly wrong. I think the strategy they went with, perhaps on reflection, they could say it wasn't the right one. if they think that the other one would have worked. And, you look at guys like Perez, who managed to go from like 8th to 4th by staying out there for like 10
Yeah.
laps long. That's really impressive.
Exactly, yeah.
But to be fair, in that scenario, we knew that the Red Bull was a fast car because of what Verstappen was doing in clean air. So, you know what I mean? It suggested that Perez probably could do the same or close to get that advantage. But, guys like Vettel managed to do the overcuts. Perez managed to maintain position just by pitting a lap later. So, yeah, on reflection, sure, maybe it does seem obvious now that they should have done an overcut. But by and large, I think what the case is in most Grand Prix is the undercut is usually the most powerful thing. That is how you gain your positions. I mean, you see it in pretty much every race this year. As soon as one guy goes in, everybody's like, okay, I got to get in to cover the undercut. So I don't blame them for what they did. I just think they got it wrong. That's all.
Yeah. I mean, I guess what I'm saying is, I think in this scenario, as in like Formula One, as in the strategy that the teams develop is based a lot on numbers, the science of the sport, I guess, isn't it? It's based on like how long they think the tyres are going to last, the weather, the track conditions, the track temperature, all the setup that the car is running, all of these sort of things. But then on the other side, you've got how the driver is feeling in the car. And I think basically in this scenario, what Mercedes did is trusted the science rather than the driver.
To be honest, I don't blame them, because when you go back to circuits, like remember last year in Silverstone where the tyres exploded, I don't think anybody was saying at that point, my tyres feel bad. No, I don't think that was on the radio much. So, you know what I mean? There's only so much feel. You know what I mean? Drivers can always feel something, but sometimes they're on the edge and they're gonna go, or maybe not on the edge, but they might look at it and go, actually, you're being a lot quicker if you go on this other one. We're gonna do it.
But I don't think. I think in that scenario, I think Mercedes got it wrong. They should have listened to. As in, Hamilton's been in the game long enough that he knows. And look, if Hamilton had made the call, ultimately the decision would be Hamilton's then, and the team would go, well, we had a strategy. Hamilton said this. We went with it, and it didn't work out.
You've also got to look on the flip side. Bottas did pit the lap after Hamilton, so perhaps he just wasn't entitled to it because he was the driver further back. Perhaps they said, you can't have it. It's Bottas's.
Maybe, yeah.
That could be the scenario in all of this.
Yeah, it could well have been. I guess what I'm saying is I feel like perhaps Mercedes were a little bit... they weren't necessarily paying full attention to what was happening. They were going by data rather than what the driver was saying, I think, personally. And I think that might be Hamilton's frustration. As soon as Hamilton came out behind Gasly, then you're like, oh, well, that's it done then, because he's not going to get past. There's nowhere to overtake.
Yeah, I mean, if anything, I'd have loved it if Red Bull went, right, team orders to AlphaTauri, Gasly, hold him up, get Vettel in front as well. really kick him in the teeth today. There, and then, hang on, hold him up again, let's get Perez ahead as well. Just everyone piling on Hamilton for the day. Oh, that'd be funny.
Anyway, we'll move on from Mercedes. Leclerc was very unlucky.
Yeah, I mean, he's cursed at Monaco. He's yet to finish a race there. Now he didn't even start this one, even though he qualified first. They were looking very good this weekend, the Ferraris. And to be fair, even though he crashed out at the end of qualifying, which prevented a lot of others from doing their flying lap, he was quickest at that point. Everyone's had at least one go at it, and they were quicker. So, as much as perhaps the others may have gone quicker, who's to say Leclerc wasn't going to go quicker on that lap? So, yeah, the crash maybe prevented others from doing a flying lap or finishing another flying lap. But by and large, I think the pole position was deserved, and they did look like the quickest car on the weekend.
Yeah, I mean, look, he was a little bit, I say fortunate, as in... I guess ultimately he wasn't fortunate because that crash impacted his race, but as in, he crashed in quali, which meant that no one else could then go and do. Well, I say no one else. Verstappen couldn't go and do his fast lap. Like Leclerc had very much been in and around anyway. So who's to say that Verstappen was going to get that lap? As in, like we saw at Portimao, the Red Bulls had looked probably fastest, and then on the one lap where Verstappen was going for his fast lap, he kind of ran a little bit wide or something like that. So You never know, but yeah, and like I said, ultimately it meant that he couldn't race because it damaged his car to a point where, and it was so it was so typically Ferrari, as in like, oh yes, the because they were, I'm trying to think what they were worried about the gearbox, weren't
Yeah,
they?
because and to be fair, that is what the commentators were saying. It was everyone was kind of saying because the crash was sort of towards the front more than the back. But then it turned out there was an issue with the rear, as you were probably going to go on to say. Then it was
Yeah, but it's so typically Ferraris. And now we checked the gearbox and it is fine.
Yeah.
And then it's like, sorry, that's my pathetic attempt at an Italian accent, by the way. And then they get to the race and it's like, oh yeah, the drive shaft at the rear isn't working. Is that related? Oh yeah, we didn't check that.
Yeah.
It's like, what?
And then
like,
they had the arrogance.
He just crashed into the
they had
wall.
the arrogance then to say it was because of Leclerc's crash. It's like, yeah, you've got guys who've got 24 hours to look at this car, fix it or whatever, and they said there's nothing wrong with the gearbox. What are you doing the rest of the time? Look at the rest of the car, man. It's like he crashed.
Yeah.
And they were like, oh yeah, Leclerc. To be honest, it's so typically Ferrari to do that, though.
It is. Yeah.
Everything,
like,
it's the driver. It's never the team.
Let's be fair, right? If that were Mercedes, like Toto Wolff would have them going over that car with like a tooth comb. They'd be checking every single thing. Whereas, like, it was almost like the media said, "Oh, we need to make sure the gearbox is all right," and Ferrari went, "Right, we'll just check the gearbox then, because that's what they're telling us we need to check, and we'll just forget about everything else."
I mean, Ferrari. This is probably the one and only chance this season Ferrari had of winning a race.
Yeah, realistically,
and I mean,
I
think you're allowed 3 times in a season to sort of use a sort of overnight token thing to fix a car or something, because you can't just let your teams go at it every single time. I imagine that's probably a union or something saying that and saying you can't have these guys doing it all the time, lads. You got to give them a break.
No,
but I mean, that you guys on pole. Just use the 24-hour chip in a sense and do it overnight, just to make sure everything's
play
okay.
It safe. Just check everything on the car.
Nah, risk it. Let's go for just the gearbox.
I'll be fine. Don't worry about it. No problems. It'll be fine.
And I felt bad for Leclerc because it was like, this is Monaco. That's his home race, and he's yet to do anything, and he's got to be licking his lips after that qualifying, thinking I've got a real chance here. I
mean, look, even if he's not from Monaco, as in like, you qualified on pole for Monaco, and it's one thing if something happens in the race, but to not even start is is very disappointing. I mean, what I should say is that they think that they're going to introduce a rule that they have in IndyCar now, where if you get red flag or if you cause a red flag in qualifying, you're removed from pole. Which I think makes sense.
But to be fair, where does the line stop? Because we've seen it with Schumacher and Rosberg in the past at Monaco, where coincidentally, when they're, after they've done their fastest lap and perhaps their teammate or another driver's doing their fastest lap, they'll go, oh, I can't, I've bottled it into this corner, let's go into the runoff, get the yellow flags out, lads, and slow them down. You know what I mean? It's like, where do you draw the line? Because it's like, obviously, with a red flag situation, it's a crash. It's nothing but a crash. So it's like in those scenarios that the guys already had a hard luck at it. Do you start cancelling times after all yellow flags as well?
Well, I mean, I guess in that scenario they'd have to.
And to be fair,
they'd have to review it individually, each incident individually.
And it's only a 12-minute Q3, which is why I always sort of complain about the amount of time they get for a third qualifying, because I always think it seems rushed. Everyone gets pretty much 2 goes at it. And then that's sort of your go. I
mean, I guess ultimately as well, as in you go to the yellow flag thing, I suppose there is an element to it. It's like, well, the FIA could turn around and go, well, we've given you 12 minutes. You don't have to do your fastest lap at the end of the qualifying session. That's the risk that you run as a driver. Like I think of Hamilton this weekend, he didn't do a good lap. He then did he pulled out, I think. He was on a fast lap. He pulled out because he wasn't happy with it. And then he thought, all right, well, I'll pull out, recharge the batteries a bit, and I'll go again. He probably would have, I'm not saying he would have got pole, but he probably would have maybe jumped 1 or 2 positions from where he was.
Maybe.
Because then, obviously, the red flag happened, and then no one else could go quicker anyway. So, that's part of the risk that you run as a driver sometimes. Either
Although you've got to also remember that they aren't giving an unlimited supply of tyres either. They've got to be really savvy with when they're using them. So
They have, but that doesn't mean they have to use them right at the end of the session.
It's true.
So I think I think in the yellow flag scenario, I think that could possibly be the argument. In the red flag scenario, it's slightly different because the session is ended.
Mm-hmm. Well, to be fair, the red flag, it was going to continue, but there's only 4 seconds left, so that's why they called it a halt.
No, a red flag means that.
But are they not allowed? They're not even can't even come back out. What if it happens if they get
red flag? Well, no, red flag is like that's it.
Okay, I wasn't aware.
End of session.
Fair enough. Okay.
So yeah, where are we at now? We talked about Leclerc.
Yeah, we're on to Vettel. He had a cracking race.
Vettel. He actually did alright, didn't he? Like,
to be fair, it looks like Aston Martin are slowly figuring out. Even Stroll's getting closer, but it does seem like they are starting to fix some of the problems they've been having.
Can I just say, while we're talking about Vettel, whoever that director is at Monaco, sack him.
The director that
like,
is of not the what's going on, but literally the coverage.
Yeah, like the camera director. The one moment in the race where something happened,
and they went, "Let's watch Stroll go over a curb."
For context, Vettel comes out of the pits. I think it was Gasly, wasn't it? Like they're alongside, they go in, and then just as they were about to have a battle, he goes, "Oh, we'll just cut to Lance Stroll bumping over a curb."
It's like even the commentators were screaming about it. They were like, "No, go back."
The best bit as well was that later in the race they started to show a replay, and then they cut away again.
I didn't even spot
it. What are you doing? Stop it! So Vettel had a really good race actually, by all accounts. You know, 5th at Monaco is very respectable.
Yeah. On the overcut as well.
And it was, yeah. So, and you know, I guess going on from new drivers in, well, I say drivers in new cars, there was very much a split between Sainz and Danny Rick, wasn't it?
This is sort of, we did mention early on that, you know, they're both getting to grips. One's having a good race here, one's having a bad race there. You know what I mean? It was tit for tat, but
there seems to have been a bit of a gulf in performance since
Sainz, you know, very impressive this weekend. I mean, we did mention earlier that Ferrari was probably the best car for the circuit. I think
one of
for sure. And you know, he did what he needed to do, and he ended up with a 2nd place in the end. Stayed in the race, kept it respectable, didn't do anything radical or crazy. It was a smooth race. And then Danny Rick, who is, you know, known for being a phenomenal driver at Monaco, starts 12th, finishes 12th. And, you know, a finished 12th after starting 12th when 2 drivers have left the race means basically you've lost 2 positions, my boy. So he just...
That's a good point. I hadn't thought of that.
He was miles off the pace in terms... I mean, he got lapped by Norris, who ended up getting it, who got 3rd place, and that was his 2nd podium of the season. You know, it's like... Sainz is not having these sorts of issues. What on earth is going on for Daniel Ricciardo?
Yeah. It's a tricky one, isn't it? Because, like you said, initially it was kind of... You know, they're getting grips of the car, blah, 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 tit for tat, one person outperforms the other. Whereas it seems like Sainz has very much kind of kicked on and seems to be very happy with the car. Ricciardo hasn't really seemed to have got to grips with it yet.
That does surprise me somewhat, because you've mentioned to me that the McLaren is, I mean, they've been saying it's a difficult car to drive, but Danny Rick has driven for... Is this his 4th team now? Or 3rd team?
Third. 4th team.
I thought it was 4th.
Well, actually, no, technically, it's probably his 5th, because he was
he was with the AlphaTauri or whatever.
Well, no, he was with Toro Rosso.
Yeah.
He's been with Toro Rosso, Red Bull, Renault, McLaren, and he also raced for... I can't remember what they're called now. I think it was NRT back in the day, like when he first started. But that was like at the very start of his career, so...
You know what I mean? You think when you've done all of those, you'd be pretty used to adjusting to different cars, but he really doesn't seem to have gotten to any grip with it.
Well, I mean, there's got to be something going on there, because like Lando Norris seems to be very comfortable in the cars, and he got was this 2nd?
This week 3rd.
Yeah, there we are. So, you know, as in... Lando Norris seems to be performing okay, so there must be... The car is clearly fast, so there must be something in the setup that Daniel Rick just isn't quite accustomed to. However, you know, it is taking a lot longer than a lot of people, including myself, would have expected, I guess.
Well, I had Danny Rick in my F1 fantasy team at the beginning, and I took him out after week one because he just did not look good. He just really is struggling. There's no obvious answer for it. It's not like he's making mistakes. You know, I think he's finished every race so far. But, I mean, when you're getting lapped by your teammates... I mean, to be fair, in Monaco, if you're getting lapped by anybody, it instantly puts you probably 3 or 4 seconds off the pace that you were doing. So every time it's happening, obviously, there's a multiplier going on you. But, to get lapped by your teammate. I mean, it's got shades of Verstappen and Gasly. Back when Gasly was in the Red Bull, you know what I mean? Whenever you're lapped by your teammate, everyone's looking around like,
it's not good.
But the thing is, at the same time, Danny Rick's not, a new driver. He's not a Yuki Tsunoda in a sense, who, if he got lapped by Gasly, you'd be going, oh, is he actually that good? Danny Rick is a veteran, you know what I mean? He's a guy who, give him the right car, you could suggest that he's going to go on to win a world championship. He hasn't had that right car quite yet, Yeah.
I mean, I guess at this point you're starting... I think up until now, perhaps Daniel Ricciardo at McLaren has lived a little bit off past reputation, but now is kind of getting to the point where it's like, no, you need to start.
We don't want another Vettel, do we?
Getting some points. No, absolutely not. No. And from a personal point of view, I'm a massive fan of Daniel Ricciardo, so I certainly hope not.
Yeah. Tricky one.
But yeah. I mean, I guess, apart from that, that's probably the majority of what happened in Monaco.
Because there wasn't big incidents, really, apart from the Bottas one, in terms of what happened on track, on race, and there were no overtakes.
In terms of, like I said, the only bit of action was Vettel coming out of the pits next to Gasly, and we didn't really get to see what happened there.
Apart from lap one and the pits, there wasn't an overtake on track. That's... That shouldn't happen at any circuit.
Says a lot, doesn't it?
I mean,
go on.
Well, no, I was going to say something, and then I thought, we could probably go on to talk about that a bit later about what we potentially would change about that circuit.
All we can hope is that. Oh yeah, we'll get on to that in a minute. But yeah, I guess in summary, Verstappen is now leading the Drivers' Championship.
This is first time,
and Red Bull leading the Constructors. Yeah, first time.
It's crazy.
So, good weekend for Red Bull. Perhaps Mercedes undid a little bit of their... When I say Mercedes, including the drivers, undid their hard work in Spain, where they were pulled off a bit of a tactical masterclass. Also a bit of a recurring theme at Monaco. They don't seem to perform as well. Interestingly, just on as a side note, Hamilton said, apparently Mercedes have the longest car on the grid.
Yeah, and I know Red Bull's got one of the shortest ones.
Yeah,
I've seen that.
Yeah. So yeah, interesting. And to be honest with you, Paul di Resta made a good point. He said, if you think about it, how important is that bit of luck that Hamilton had at Imola, where he would have been a lap down, but because of flags, he was on the same lap. All of a sudden. It just shows you the fine margins, I think, because Hamilton could be, 20 odd points back.
There's sort of things that even themselves out over a season in terms of luck on the track.
Oh, 100%. 100%.
But I don't think though that thing happening in did you say Imola? I can't remember. Yeah, in Imola. I don't think you can replicate that in terms of there won't be any single moment where you are able to gain that many points from a decision in a sense, unless you're losing them from a retirement or something. I don't think you're going to find a scenario where you're able to, in a sense, he had a protected position as well at that point. He was lapped, but he was something like 8th. But obviously, he was still stuck in the gravel. If that crash hadn't occurred, he'd have been 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, because he couldn't get on the track.
Don't forget, at Imola, under the restart, Max Verstappen was leading the pack, and he very nearly dropped it and behind the safety car.
Yeah, that is true.
If that happens in the race, that happens in the race, he gets pinged. So these sort of things happen. They do balance themselves.
He might get pinged, but you got to remember that was under the safety car where everyone's bumper to bumper. In the race, he's actually got a pretty healthy lead for the majority of it.
But it happens. Like we see last season, George Russell under the safety car drops it, bang into the barrier, end of race. It's fine margins. But yeah, that little bit of luck for Hamilton right now is
just keeping him
margins, I guess. Margins. Circuit itself, I mean, Monaco. Does Monaco need to change? Do you think?
100%. 100%. It's. I mean, I know you've. I mean, we were speaking about it prior to this, but I know you're more of the opinion the cars need to change.
Well, I'm not saying that the car is. I'm not saying it's solely the car's fault. I mean, who knows what will happen when we have the slightly smaller cars? It is a factor, I think. I mean, ultimately, I think, they say, the circuit needs to change, but there's only so much you can do when it's a street circuit.
Yeah.
As in, like, it's not like at Barcelona where they can just go, well, instead of having this chicane, we'll just do a sweep in. You can't really do that in Monaco because it's roads.
Yeah.
Like, they follow whatever route they follow, I guess. I guess, we've said previously, like, is Monaco just living on past reputation? I think after this race, you'd certainly say yes. But I don't really know what they could do to change it. It needs to change, but I don't know what the solution is, really.
Well, first and foremost, I think the cars are too quick. I know that sounds stupid, but the cars nowadays are that much faster than each other that...
Well, they're downforce, aren't they?
Yeah.
It's all about... they're so sticky.
Well, more so, I'm thinking in a sense, you can't... There's no sweeping bends, firstly, so grip does not matter in this circuit in terms... You know what I mean? It's just... It's straight line speed, sharp bend. Straight line speed, sharp bend. And it's like... So that doesn't lead for any turns to come out, who's got better traction. Or can they go into it side by side? Or are they going to exit it? And in a sense, because in a sense you are guaranteed to be... You can't physically even be alongside them going onto a straight.
No.
And the distance between one turn and the next isn't long enough because of the speed of the cars for any car to make up that difference. It's just not long enough.
Yeah.
So they do need to change something. I personally, I don't think they can change anything. And if they are going to stay at this circuit, I mean, I can't remember who said it, but somebody said that perhaps they bring in retro cars for this one and let them all drive it out on something a little bit different, which would obviously be really funky. But you need something slower. That's the bare bones of it, because they're just too fast.
Yeah, I mean, like I know in NASCAR they do like I can't remember what they call it. It's like a retro rewind or something like that, and all of the cars run like retro liveries. And they like all of the coverage is based on like the history of the sport, blah blah blah. But I guess that would, I don't know really, because I guess all that would do is make it more of an event, I guess. But the race would still be meh. So I don't know what the solution is, in all honesty.
It needs more sweeping bends. The straights aren't long enough, and it needs to be wider.
The only thing I could think they could do really is make it so that, like, instead of having a race per se, like the qualifying is like a I don't even know. Or what you could do, perhaps you could do like a knockout. So you could have like 4 cars on track, like, and you could tier them all. So you could have like, how many cars are on the grid? Is it like 22? Is that how many cars we have nowadays? I can't even remember.
We've got 20 at the moment.
Is it 20?
10 teams, 2 drivers each.
There we are. You could have 5 races of 4 drivers. And then you could like tier them all. You could have like mini races, and then you have like the final race, if that makes sense. That's the only thing I could think that you could do.
Or you could do a time trial, give everyone, say, 10 laps, fastest time. You know what I mean? And it is no qualifying, it's just a shootout. No car, it's just one car at a time does all 10 laps. Next car, 10 laps.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? It'd almost be like in cycling where they have the time trials for certain stages where it's a shortened one. It's like, you don't get your team to help you out on this. This is you and you alone. You've got to do the fastest time. You can choose what tyre you want. If you think the softs are going to give you that advantage for, say, 6 or 7 laps and then cling on for the remaining 3, or do you go mediums, even though they're not going to be as quick at the beginning, just to maintain that speed towards the end? I think that could be really cool at Monaco. I think, but at the same time, what do people want? Do they like racing, or do they like to see a spectacle? Because, I mean, when I watch the cycling, I love watching a time trial. They are really interesting because you can see it slipping away from somebody. Almost they've got those constant time deltas, which you can see where people are, this person's someone to watch because at the halfway mark, they are, say, just within 4 seconds of the leader. Or, you know what I mean? I think that could be a really cool twist to Monaco where you just say, let's introduce time trials.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the thing is, like, ultimately, across the course of a season, you are going to have some circuits that have more overtaking than others.
But some, there has to be some overtaking. That's the minimum.
I can't remember who it was, but they made a comment on, I think it was on Twitter. It was either some sort of racing driver or Formula One driver. I can't remember who it was, but they basically said that, like, the entertaining thing with Monaco is effectively just seeing the drivers absolutely at the limit, like, around such a tight circuit, which to a certain extent I can appreciate, as in, like, when you're seeing drivers, like, doing hundreds of miles an hour, like, millimetres from a wall, there is an element of that, which is exciting. I don't think anyone would deny that, but there has got to be a bit of balance, because ultimately we saw a 70-odd lap procession, effectively, is what we saw at Monaco, isn't it? So, yeah. But ultimately, I don't know what the solution is. I really don't know.
Time trials, baby. It's time trials. I am convinced on it. I only thought about it a few minutes ago. I think that would be awesome.
When I say I don't know what the solution is, if they were to keep just in the normal format, I don't think there is a solution. No. But, on the flip side, we've got another street circuit coming up after this. Do you like that segue? We've got another street circuit coming up. Azerbaijan, Baku, is a street circuit like Monaco, but you can overtake because there are some straights, there are some wider corners, there's some little bits of runoff, so there is a little bit more leeway there for, overtakes. Yeah. Could Mercedes, as in they clearly struggled at Monaco, I don't think there's any denying that. The drivers struggled, the car struggled, everything struggled for Merc. Could they utilise their power unit a little bit more? And after a difficult weekend at Monaco, they could probably do with a good result, I think. Both in terms of Constructors and Driver Championship. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, I mean, they have to come back kicking, yeah. They can't have another one where they say we're not good on street circuits, because then what happens when you get... I mean, I think we got Singapore on the calendar. Is it what happens there?
Yeah,
you know what I mean? You can't just almost get a pass and say we're not a street circuit car, because...
Yeah, you can't just write them off.
Because, I mean, Red Bull have never done that. They've never said we're just a Monaco circuit car. It's like you have to be able to compete. And to be honest, this is why I like having 22 races in a season. If you don't have 22 races in a season,
out,
you know what I mean? This is how you get it.
Well, I mean, I guess, look, it's one of those things, isn't it? As in, I think the swing points in a Formula One season are... It's not necessarily where you win. It's what position you come in when you don't win.
It's not about winning every race. It's just about making sure that you're not winning. So maybe not winning, but not outside of the points. Not
10th.
Not doing what Hamilton did this weekend and finishing 7th. You know what I mean? You've consistently finishing top 5 is essential. Yeah. I mean, I think Verstappen is now the only driver who's finished every race on the podium this season, and it pays a dividends, because regardless of the fact that Hamilton, by and large, has done more, and he had built up a little bit of a lead, it only takes one race when you fall outside for it all to go, to cahoots.
Yeah,
100%. You've got to be in there all the time.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is as well, I say about the Mercedes being able to use their power unit, like, the Honda engine is absolutely no slouch this season, as in Red Bull have they've managed to close... To be honest with you, I personally, I think that's where the gap has been closed, really. I don't think the Red Bull is any more impressive through the corners than it always has been, but I think the power that Mercedes have had in the past has just blown Red Bull away, in all honesty. Whereas this season, I still think the Mercedes is probably slightly more impressive power unit, but it's minimal, very, very minimal. So, I don't think that's a benefit for Mercedes in themselves, but I don't think that necessarily gives them an outright advantage over Red Bull. And, we're still, how many races are we now? 5? We got 5? Bahrain.
I think Monaco was number 6, if I'm honest, but not 100%. Yeah, I think so.
We've had Bahrain. Oh, I can't even remember. Anyway, we're however many races into the season. We still really haven't had, all of the Red Bull and Mercedes drivers in and around the top 4, as in the first race, Perez had to start from the pit lane. Imola, Perez struggled. Portimao, both the Red Bulls struggled, really, because of the wins and stuff.
Also, let's not forget Imola. Bottas almost finished in the bottom 10 and
Yes.
crashed out.
Yeah.
Let's get that in there.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I forgot about that. What happened? Something happened in the race before that at Spain as well. Was it Bottas was just not really in contention? Oh, Perez struggled in Spain as well.
Yeah.
So we're yet to really have, and then obviously Hamilton struggled and Bottas was out. So we haven't really had all four of those drivers in around the top four, to be honest. So it'll be interesting. It would be nice to have that happen. As in tactically, it'll be interesting to see that sort of thing happen. You know how they all play it, because I guess as soon as you have both drivers in and around those positions, you kind of.
You see strategies on show. If Monaco had all four of those at the front, that race would have been electric in terms of the strategy.
Yeah,
you'd be like, oh my goodness, what is going on?
Exactly, yeah. So yeah, it would be nice to see that happen, I think.
And to be fair, they've got the form to do it in a sense. Like Verstappen is the best driving the best at the moment. Yeah. Hamilton won there in 2018, Bottas in 2019, there wasn't one in 2020. And Perez got third there in 2018 before they became the pink Mercedes. You know what I mean? They all have form there. They've all done well there recently. Nothing to suggest that they can't do that the same this coming weekend. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely. You know, also there's a little bit of history of Verstappen there, crashing into him and Danny Rick came together. I don't think it was solely Verstappen's fault from what I can remember.
I don't know. I've watched that quite a few times back. I think that was all Verstappen, if I'm honest.
Okay, fair enough.
Gave that Danny Rick no chance going into that turn. He was like, right, I'll swerve back and brake at the same time. It's like, whoa, dude, just like, kill the man. Yeah, there was no hope out there.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, I was trying to be a bit politically correct there because I couldn't remember. It's been a little while since I've seen it, so I couldn't remember exactly what happened. But you know, these sort of things happen. But you know, a bit of history there. Is that going to play on Verstappen's mind? Possibly, probably not. You know, could Ferrari? Do you think Ferrari are going to drop off drastically?
Yeah.
In Azerbaijan?
I don't know about drastically, but
well, when I say drastically, is in like less. You know, from the point of view of they were in and around pole in Monaco. Do you think they're going to be there this time around, or do you think it's going to be?
No, not a chance.
Okay.
I know they're good on street circuits, but this isn't a street circuit like Monaco. This is where straights genuinely matter, and you know it's probably depending on where you say that straight starts. I think that's the longest straight on the calendar, because I know some people would say it starts after that really tricky. I don't know if you call it a chicane. It's a left to right.
It's kind of like a sweeping chicane, isn't it?
Some people would say it starts just at the exit of that, but in my opinion, it starts 2 turns before that. You know what I mean? Because that is where you go on the accelerator and you're like, let's bomb it. And you've got, you know what I mean? It's a sequence of about 4 relatively intricate but full speed sweeping turns. And if you've got the minerals to do them, you're going to be really quick. So I think it could come down to that for the drivers. But for Ferrari in large, this circuit, it's just got too many straights in a sense. This is going to be a power unit circuit. It's probably going to be favouring towards the Red Bull and Mercedes being at the top, and I wouldn't be surprised if again Lando Norris is in amongst it at the top as well, because they got the Mercedes power unit. But yeah, I don't see Ferrari. I mean, especially when we've spoken about the sort of duel between Ferrari and McLaren, sort of to be that third best team. I think this is going to be one where McLaren really show their stripes again.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I mean, I guess when I was saying about Ferrari, in my head, I kind of had signs just because of, you know, he's been doing... look, Leclerc has done particularly well, but everyone expected Leclerc to do well because he's a brilliant driver, whereas I guess Sainz was a bit more of an unknown, wasn't it? You know, of all of the drivers who have kind of switched teams, or in, like, Fernando Alonso's case, rejoined the sport, as in, Sainz has by far been the quickest out of all of them. You know, and equally, you know, you've got Danny Rick on the other end who has struggled, but as in, he's won at Baku before. Is this a chance for him to kind of kickstart his McLaren career, I guess.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know, a good performance. Like
He needs to kickstart it. I don't know when that opportunity will come, whether it's this one or not.
yeah,
but
but
something has to
basically
happen.
he needs a podium.
Yeah,
I think he needs a podium.
He needs a big
Yeah.
performance. Big performance.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm really looking forward to Baku. To be honest, I think there's a lot of
It's a good circuit.
there's a lot of different variables,
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
and after a particularly I'm just gonna say after a particularly boring race in Monaco, we could do with something that has variables.
Yeah.
Rather than, like I said, a 70-odd lap procession.
And I can't wait to see the drama at that first turn. That first turn is going to be amazing. It's probably one of the best turns on the Formula One calendar, and just in terms of drama, you've got what's close to a 3-mile straight. It feels like in the run up to it, and it's like, right, who's got the minerals to brake later? Because if you brake too late, you're going into that wall, which is absolutely punishing straight after.
Or into the runoff, isn't it? Like straight on.
It's like you just got to go with it. You know what I mean? Who's got the stones to do it? And that's what the race is going to come down to. I'd love to see Verstappen start second and push, just cream Hamilton into that first turn and go, I'm not backing out, sunshine. That'd just be so fun.
Yeah.
So fun.
Right, in terms of our predictions then, now I actually forgot to put these in the notes. So perhaps we'll have to work out the points next time around from what happened in Monaco.
True.
But in terms of what we think is going to happen in Azerbaijan, what are your thoughts on a winner?
A winner, it's going to be Verstappen. I've gone with him for most of the season. I think after that last race, I think he's going to show it even more. I just, as much as Mercedes are a phenomenal qualifying team and all round usually brilliant at strategies, I do get the vibe that after Monaco they're going to be a wounded animal. I mean, sometimes the wounded animal,
Yes.
you think of the honey badger, it comes out and it's going to try and kill you. But I don't think Mercedes, they're sort of a lion. And when they're a wounded animal, I think they're going to take a week or a race or two to recuperate before it. But who knows? Maybe they are a honey badger in disguise. Maybe it will be them. But yeah, I think it's going to be Verstappen, I do, for the race. What about you?
I'm thinking Bottas, just purely because I'm willing him to get a bit of good luck.
Well, you see, he's got a sort of curse on him that if he does start to have a good race, it's not going to happen.
So are we thinking he needs to qualify like 10th?
Yeah, well, not qualify. No, he can't even. He's not allowed to venture beyond third because that's when the issues happen. So it's an impossibility that he's going to win anything.
Okay, fair enough. So who are you thinking for pole?
Oh, that's a tough one.
Sorry, I'm typing. If you can hear typing in the background, I'm typing these in as we speak because I forgot to do it before.
I'm going to say for pole position. Oh, I mean, it's got to be Verstappen. It's got to be Verstappen. I'm ride or die with Verstappen for most of the season. I think it's going to be him. What about you?
Oh, I should have just copied and pasted it.
Yeah, it doesn't change very often.
I'm going to back Lewis Hamilton for pole.
Oh. It's interesting.
What can I say?
For overtakes? This is always the hard one.
I'm going with the veteran Fernando Alonso.
Ooh. To be fair, Alpine didn't have a great Monaco, but I Monaco is not the same as any other circuit, so I think they'll be back to close to their best. I'll be honest. Yeah. Azerbaijan, I think Leclerc made a big boo-boo or whatever here before when he went into the wall at the castle. So yeah. I got a feeling he's going to have a cracking race this time. I think he's going to have the most overtakes.
Okay. Leclerc. Sorry, who did you say for pole? You said Verstappen.
Yeah, it's Verstappen. Copy-paste each time.
So you think Verstappen's going to get a clean sweep, basically?
Yeah. It's going to be him again.
Okay. Well, there we are. We'll work out the points next time around because, like I said, I didn't prepare the notes for this section. But for context, going into Monaco, I was winning.
Yeah,
right?
You probably are going to be winning after it because I don't think...
I don't think so because I put winner Hamilton,
I put
pole Hamilton, and then I put...
and I got Perez for the overtakes. 0. Get in there.
Exactly, yeah. So I think you are very much going to be like
just sneak this,
romping away with it after Monaco. So we'll work out the points for the next podcast. But yeah, we'll see what happens. There we are. I think that's it.
That is the end of our podcast.
Pleasure. As always, everyone, if you're listening on YouTube, why not subscribe? Give us a like. Perhaps leave a comment on your thoughts of what we've said. If you're on Spotify, why not give us a follow? We're also on Google Podcasts, Pocket Casts, Breaker, Apple Podcasts, Anchor.
Sounds like all of them.
Yeah, we're on lots of different things. So, Jack, pleasure as always.
Yep.
And we shall be back next week with more sport ramblings.
I think it'll be the Euros.
Thank you all for listening. Oh yes, we'll be talking about the Euros. Make sure you're there for the Euros. We'll speak to you all soon.